Hello, Over It Sisters. You're in for a real treat with this next episode when I interview Jennifer in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Sadly, just a few days after the recording of this episode, Jennifer's mom passed away. We'd like to dedicate this episode to Patricia Patty Chin. I love them all. Well, welcome back to Over It. Hello to all our listeners. This is Dr. Donna Gilman, and today I'm here with Jen Kamen. Welcome, Jen.
Hi.
And today's episode is devoted to Hispanic Heritage Month. And so welcome to all of our listeners who are celebrating with us. And Jen, just a little bit of background about how you and I know each other. Jen is just absolutely my right-hand woman in business. And I feel so lucky that Jen has come into my life and into our business. And I can't imagine life without you, Jen. So Jen is Director of Operations for the Couple Center of the Pioneer Valley, and so much more. Jen, welcome to Over It.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be part of this.
And we're here today just to learn a little bit more about, your journey and where you find yourself right now in your life. Would you share a little bit about where you're at in terms of the landscape of your life, your age or age range, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just sort of like some of the complexity that you're working with in your life right now?
Sure. I mean, it's always rude to ask a woman about her age, isn't it?
It is, except on this
But
podcast where I pretty much ask everybody what their age is. At least give us a range.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No. I am very happy and very proud to admit that come this November, I will be turning 38. I have lived a very full and long 38 years, and I plan on living many, many more.
Yes. And you are indeed an old soul. So while you may be,
Yes.
one of our younger podcast guests, you definitely have lived a lot of experience in those couple of decades.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm turning 38 and I have battled cancer. I've lost a kidney. I've gone through a divorce. I've had 3 children. I've gotten remarried, gone through moves and school and all of the ups and downs that life can possibly throw you well into your 50s. And I think I've just gotten to experience it all just a little bit sooner. And I'm pretty grateful for it all, honestly. It matches just who I am inside. I was born in the 80s, but I feel like I came from like either a Victorian era or like the 20s. I can genuinely feel these eras in my soul. So it's
Yeah.
I always find myself connecting to those who have lived a much richer life than myself.
I love that. And, from the minute I met you, I thought, here is really a wise person who's sort of transcending the years. You just launched a kiddo to college, which is
Yes.
incredible. And what else is going on with you right now? What's going on for you in your life?
Oh, well, it's all really exciting. I mean, my eldest just started on campus life in St. Petersburg. Shout out to USF St. Pete. Um, my my middle guy is a sophomore in high school, and then our baby, which we really can't use that term for very much longer, is 11. And life as a mom is always busy, but then I'm also a business professional. Aside from working for Couple Center of the Pioneer Valley, I'm always developing. I'm always looking for new avenues for growth and learning. And I think for myself personally, the minute I stop wanting to learn is where I start atrophying. Um, and I've had just such a really great opportunity in the past few years. I mean, COVID was a blessing in disguise because all of a sudden I had all this free time to learn, and YouTube and things like that proved to be just such a great resource. I'll admit that I taught myself QuickBooks during COVID. And now I'm like way too overconfident about it.
Now you're the queen of
But
it. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, but it's just it's been a really interesting experience because I think quite often when we think about like these eras of learning, there's elementary school and then there's high school and then you're off to college, and then where does the learning continue after that? And the learning happens every day that you interact with somebody who's lived a different walk of life from you, every day that you get the chance to learn a new program, every day that I get to sit with clinicians and learn about a modality that I've never heard of. It's just life is constantly sending you these opportunities, and I'm just here for all of them. I'm really really just grateful at this point in my life.
Well, one of the things that, I mean, I love that. And one of the things that always strikes me about you is you have been through it in life. You mentioned just some of the things that you've gone through in life that have been really challenging and would have caused many, many people to curl up in the fetal position and not stand back up. And you are so optimistic and plucky and enthused about life and enthused about learning. And I'm just wondering, where the heck that came from, that resilience. And also, would you be willing to talk a little bit about like your upbringing? Like what was that? What were the I don't even know much about this, like your early years. How did you become the woman that you are today, who has been through so much in a relatively short period of time?
Well, I mean, that's such a loaded thing, right? I think when you see people who have this optimistic mindset, I've come to determine that there is kind of like two paths. They've gone through life where nothing's really hit them too hard, and that's why everything's, sunshine and roses for them. Or you meet somebody who's literally been in the muck and has resurfaced and reinvented and refuses to look at life through those muck filtered glasses anymore and will only move forward in a different direction. And I tend to associate myself as part of the latter. Um, I I grew up in a rather abusive household. My biological mother was, it still is, to my knowledge, an alcoholic and an addict. And that proved to be quite challenging when it came to giving me the love and support that I needed for an upbringing. My biological father split from my mother when she was still pregnant with me. So I actually didn't get the opportunity to meet him until I was nearly 15. And then there was my grandmother, who was born in the 20s and raised a newborn in her 50s. And always taught me about having a sensible cardigan and
Mm-hmm.
having a really good record collection and
Mm-hmm.
always being able to make a signature dish. So I certainly have all of those things in line. And down to today, when I was in the bathroom putting on my makeup and thinking, okay, I want to put my best foot forward and have a little bit more of an aesthetic today. I feel her there with me. I feel that presence of that warmth that she taught me about sitting together and getting ready. And I remember her spraying her perfume, and like those things are the little slivers of positivity that I choose to look back on my childhood and hold on to and sort of put in a locket for myself.
Put it
Because
in a
while
locket
I
for yourself. Yeah, that's beautiful.
exactly, because while I did go through some really awful and violent times, I can honestly say that while I did go through all that, I know I had one more person than a lot of people had. Having my
That's right.
grandmother meant that I had safety.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
think that, that really just speaks to, right, the importance of just having one adult in a child's
yes,
life, right, that they can be safe with. Just one. And, we know from
yeah,
all of the research in terms of attachment and secure attachment, there's this concept of earned secure, meaning no matter what was going on with your parents or your primary caregivers or whoever was raising you, no matter what was going on there, if there was somebody in your early years, it could be a teacher, it could be an auntie, in your case, a grandma, but somebody that
yep.
modeled safety for you, then you can form some secure attachment that will carry you into adulthood and allow you to have healthier, safer relationships with other adults. So you had that with your grandma. And I'm also wondering about her heritage that she maybe passed down to you. Can you speak to that?
Oh yeah, I mean, as if the Gloria Stefan hair didn't give it away already. I mean, my Cuban roots run so very deep. I can't clean the house without playing Celia Cruz. Like I can't hear Tito Puente and not, give a little shimmy, give a little shake. And it is so much of me and who I am. She came here to Boston, of all places. She moved from Cuba to the States, and talk about a culture shock where like no one spoke the language and no one was of the culture at that point. And making it in the 60s in Boston certainly wasn't the easiest thing in the entire world. But she did it. And she gave me such a strong footprint of what I can do versus everything that everyone's telling me that I can't. Um, and that is the Cuban people for me in general. When I see my brothers and sisters out there, when I see like my people out there and achieving and doing well, it lifts us all up. It really,
Mhm.
really does. Be it from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from Colombia, from
Mhm.
Venezuela, from Mexico, Dominican Republic, it doesn't matter where you're from. We're all this blend of Spaniard, Taino, mixed cultures that so deserve a moment in the spotlight. And we're in this really wonderful generation where now we're seeing more of that. And
Yes.
and it really just fills me with so much joy. And even in the work that I've gotten to do with Couples Center, it was such a really cool experience to come into an area. Northampton is not known for its Cuban population. But when I came aboard, I was just really passionate about wanting to expand Spanish speaking services and things like that. And the two directors, yourself and Catherine, were just like, do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's get after it. And that sort of support was just like, that is the unity that we need. That is the lines being completely taken away that make us all one person. But acknowledging the need and supporting the need is where we start.
That's so beautifully said. And I love this richness of culture and heritage and pride that came through grandma to you. And I'm also struck by what you said about, grandma really took on you're bringing you up when she was in her 50s, which is like my age now. So I'm just trying to imagine, my son handing me his newborn and
Right.
me taking on the upbringing of that child right now. What an interesting and challenging, and maybe it was I'm sure it was the greatest gift of her life, but wow. And she was your primary caretaker.
Absolutely. It's been through a really beautifully interesting lens that I get to start looking at this, because she was 50 and I'm 38 now. And the thought of someone giving me a baby right now is just like beyond exhausting. I have no idea. Like, shout out to my friends and family who are still, getting babies into this world in their late 30s, but
And
my
40s.
bandwidth is
Yeah.
not there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a different generation, that people aren't having to do that whole get your babies out early. They get to live more of a life. And
Yeah.
that is so neat to me, but also given the bulk of what I've been through in my younger years, I could not have imagined that. And
Yeah.
my grandmother was no exception to that rule. My grandmother had ovarian cancer that she survived, and she lost her husband 3 years before I came into this world. Um, so there was a lot of start over in that sense for her too. And maybe I was her biggest blessing, but there's no doubt that she was mine.
Oh, that's so sweet. And I mean, I'm just thinking about the gifts, but also the great sacrifice for her
Huge.
to start raising a child again at the age of 50. And was she also working outside the home as she was bringing you up?
No, see, my grandmother was the epitome of a Latin superstar. Okay, because we Latinos come to this country and we don't automatically have a role to fill. We don't necessarily have a job that's perfect for this Spanish speaking person who doesn't speak any English. So her first gig was she started taking in kids from the neighborhood and babysitting.
Okay, right.
And then that expanded to the kids who she was taking care of loved her cooking. So then the families would start asking, would you mind making dinners so we can pick up our kid and then we can pick up dinners? Well, I mean, that was just the biggest compliment you could have ever paid that woman. She probably would have done it for free, but the fact that she got to make money off of it was such a blessing. Um, and really, I just saw her do so much with so little, down to being a teenager. And as a girl, you shift a lot through sizes. I went through a major growth spurt from my eighth grade year to my sophomore year, and I needed to replace my brasiers. And as a young person, you don't associate the expense with it.
Right.
And I went to the store to go replace my bras and realized, oh, I kind of can't afford these things. Like, these are really, really
You were a
expensive.
high school
So
student. Yeah.
I was a high school student, exactly. So I remember coming home and feeling really sad and asking my grandmother, like, what do I do? What do I do? Because I didn't have a birthday coming up. I didn't have Christmas coming up. And these are all the milestones where you get gifts as a kid,
Right.
like, I know I can ask for this gift card and maybe I'll have enough. And it was such a lovely and humbling experience to watch my grandmother go through every jacket pocket that she had
Yeah.
in her closet and amount $40 for me, and
Wow.
just handed it over and said, go get yourself something.
Wow. Yeah.
And that level of commitment to not only your child, but your child's happiness and your child's well-being, and just the little things that you can do, that stuff sticks with me forever. I think about my own kids when I do that, and it's just like the joy that I get from being able to supply these kids with shampoo and conditioner and a new t-shirt every week. It's made my life so much richer.
Oh, I have so many questions. I mean, first of all, did you call your grandma abuela or did you refer to her as mama or what did you call her?
So I referred to my grandmother as Mima. And if
Mima.
you if you translate this in Spanish, it comes from the term mimar, which
Mhm.
means to mother.
To mother. Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
so she will forever be Mima. And one day, if I'm so fortunate to have grandchildren, I hope to be Mima in the next generation.
Oh, that's so sweet. I mean, I guess I was going to make a leap too and ask about, I also grew up not with any real money. There was money for food, but no extras. And and then when you become a parent yourself, and of course you became a parent younger, on the younger side, let's say, but
Three
now
weeks after my 18th birthday,
yeah,
to be
3 weeks
exact.
after your 18th birthday, but then, you're still parenting, right? You're still got kids in the house and you're you're married and things are a little bit different now. What has it been like for you to, because you were just talking about how good it feels to be able to provide the essentials and then some to children, coming from an experience where there wasn't much extra to an experience where maybe now I can provide some of those extras. But how do we raise children that do not have a sense of entitlement? How do we still raise children that can really appreciate these extras, even if they maybe haven't had to go without?
Gosh, that's such a really great question. And it's a question that I have grappled with so much through my growing as a mother because very much like when they're babies, I started off as a baby mom, and as they've gotten bigger, I became the adolescent mom, and now I feel like I'm undergrad mom, if you will. um and in that sense, it's I don't believe in, and this is a hot topic, I don't necessarily believe that kids deserve an allowance. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, I think that that's kind of step one in creating a sense of entitlement, in the sense that you live here and you just get a paycheck for free. That doesn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a big believer and a big proponent in earned wages.
Mm-hmm.
And while that does teeter on the sound of child labor, the truth is, if you want something, you need to earn it. And between you and I, most of the time I'm still going to give it to them, but I need to see that there was some form of effort put towards obtaining that.
You're
That
saying you want to see a
you
consistent effort. It's not that you're going to hand over money every week for chores or anything like that. It's, I want to see consistent effort, and then we can apply that effort towards that, whatever it is that you want or need that's extra.
Exactly, exactly. Plus, I don't love the idea of, in this day and age, you have kids that are constantly buying vape cartridges and things like that from each other at school. And if I can avoid being the financial distributor of these teenagers being able to buy some of this stuff that they shouldn't have in the first place, I'll do it. You know,
Right,
tell me
right.
what it is that you're working towards. Is it a laptop? Is it rollerblades? Is it whatever it is? And we'll make a goal chart. We'll see what we need to do to get to that. And that's exactly how we play it as parents in this house, because it's really about, we are we're cohabitating. And that's the big thing that I push on the kids as they get older and become teenagers, that you can look at us as the enemy, or you can look at us as the people that you cohabitate with, that care for you, that want to support you and want to make your life easier, but you have to apply a level of respect toward.
Well, right. That's
um
right. I mean, it's that piece around you want all of this autonomy. You want to be treated like you're a mature kid. But the other side of that is showing up in a responsible
that's right.
fashion, is using your maturity in ways that don't just serve you to get what you want, right? So it's, yeah, the
Yes.
messaging. If you're enjoying Over It, make sure you follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Music. I'm thinking too, I was born in this country. You were born in this country. My parents were born in this country. Your parents were born in this country and were not born in this country. And
My
then
mother was,
your
but
mother
my
was
my biological father was actually born in Nicaragua.
in Nicaragua. And
Mhm.
so and my grandparents were all not born in this country and also played a massive role in my upbringing. And I think when you have that kind of exposure, which can be good or bad, but have an exposure to that generation of immigrants, it really shifts kind of your perspective on the American experience, right? Can you talk a little bit
Yes.
more about that for yourself?
Oh my God, absolutely. There were things when I came to growing up a little bit more that I started discovering about my friends and things like that that just did not apply to me. Things like generational wealth, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's really alluded to the immigrant experience entirely, because you would meet people that you'd find out that their great grandparents lived in this house and
Yep.
they were able to, you know, inherit this house through generations. And their great grandparents paid $5,000 for this grand Victorian home that they're living in. And you're like, all right, that's great. I have to pay 495,000 to get a three-bedroom townhouse now, but I'm glad that that's your experience. So there's a lot of like little awakenings that you come to realize that those of us with immigrant experiences have very, very different vantage points on things like that. Like we also don't look at like the motherland and think like Arkansas. You know, it's we tend to go deeper and further. And for me, I think when I did my 23andMe, when I did the actual deciphering to find out like where am I from, the conversation when I was younger had been that my father's side of the family had some sort of Asian immigrant background, which explains certain aesthetics and things like that. And then I come to find out that I am personally 20% indigenous person.
Mm.
So then that was a conversation where I'm like, hey, Dad, so something's up. And then it's just a further enlightenment. It makes you dig deeper. It makes you find out more. I did a ton of digging on the Taino people after discovering that and finding out that so many of us from Latin countries or from Hispanic backgrounds associate ourselves as Spaniards. And that couldn't be further from the truth for the majority of us, where we have very deep indigenous roots to the lands that we came from, but ultimately have no idea about them. So it's there's always so many question marks where it's not just like my family came on the Mayflower and I can trace it all the way
Yeah.
back.
There's so much
You know,
complexity and unanswered questions in your people's
yes,
history, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
exactly.
you know, you you mentioned having your first child just shy of your 18th birthday. Take us there. Take us there.
Oh,
What was going on for you?
oh my goodness. Even looking back at some of those pictures the last time I saw them was just so eye-opening to see this incredible belly on this childlike face of mine. Um, how incredibly shocking. It was during my senior year um, that I ended up giving birth. So ultimately, I was very, very active in school. I was very studious, and I had done quite a bit to basically get myself out, you know, if you will. Like I'm gonna leave this place behind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then acts of rebellion later, I end up discovering that I'm pregnant with my eldest child, and that just did a whole tailspin on my life. I mean, I went from being a part-time employee at Pottery Barn to begging and pleading anyone who would hire me to please put me on as full time, and they did. They were absolutely wonderful. I had such a group of angels that were managers there taking care of me and looking out for me, and
Were
it
you
was
able to finish your senior year while you were pregnant?
I was not. I actually had to drop out of school, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to go the GED route,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to community college because I wasn't going to waste that time not getting educated. Essentially, I knew that high school while pregnant would be emotionally uncomfortable, but I knew I could take online classes and be just fine. So that was
Yeah.
sort of the route that I took instead.
What was your grandma's reaction when you shared your pregnancy?
Oh, not great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
that
great.
was
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. That was a world of disappointment that I carried for 9 months along with the pregnancy. However, I will say that the moment Bella came into this world, all of a sudden, my angry grandmother was singing such a different tune. And if I can be absolutely frank, it gave her more years. My
Yeah.
grandmother was sick and she had Parkinson's and she had a quadruple bypass at that point. So it felt like she wasn't long for this world when I was pregnant. And then somehow we still got an additional 4 years after the fact. And Bella was just an additional blessing in that aspect too, because I got to have the person who was my mom get to see me be the best mom I could be. And what a gift that was.
Your grandmother modeled really loving motherhood to you. And
Absolutely.
when Bella was born, did you live with your grandma or did you live with Bella's
Yes.
dad? Okay. So you lived
Yeah.
with grandma, with Bella, and was Bella's dad in the picture at that point?
So he and I were together through the pregnancy until about Bella was about 3 months old. And then shortly thereafter, the communication became pretty non-existent. So Bella has seen him maybe once or twice since her second birthday, and
Wow.
that or since their second birthday, excuse me. And that's been it. It's it's his loss is the way that I really, really look at it, because Bella is such an extraordinary kid. And what Bella did for me in giving me a driving force. I mean, when I was looking at the finish line and what's at the end of that race, Bella's little face was right there, and not much has changed in that aspect. I still very
Aw,
much live every day with the three of them in my mind at the end of the finish line. And
the three
if
kids.
at
Yeah.
the yeah, absolutely. If at the end of my days they feel like I was a good mom to them, I feel like I did something good.
Aw, well, it's guaranteed. And I'm just thinking about you as a single mom, raising Bella. You're going essentially, you go to community college, you graduate
Yeah.
from community college, you get your GED, you go to community college, you're working, you're raising Bella on your own, and you're such a young adult. And then what? What's the next big milestone in life or big happening?
Yeah. So I married my first husband when shortly after my grandmother passed away. So my grandmother, like I said, lived until I was about 21, 22, if I'm doing the math right, I think. And then just a couple of months later, I ended up engaged. And if you want to see someone do something out of trauma, ask them to make a big life event after losing the one person who's the anchor in their life.
Well, that's right. And
And
that makes so much sense, right? That anchor was gone and understandably you were looking for some kind of replacement.
I needed security without a doubt. And security and love at that point kind of felt synonymous to me. I couldn't see a difference between the two at that phase in my life. And
Mm,
my ex-husband seemed like someone who could provide that for me, someone who could help give Bella a more stable home life, someone who could help financially, um, someone who could just, I don't know, help bring me the family I never had. And that's really the truth. I wanted that Leave It to Beaver family that I saw on television. I wanted that the house and the dog and the kid and the whole shebang, right? Because that's the package you're sold. That's the package that you're told this is how you got to do it. And I already felt like I was doing it so out of order, having had dropped out of high school, having had Bella first, that it felt like this was the trajectory I need to take. This is the right course of events to go in. Um, and sadly, it was not necessarily in my best interest at that time. I needed to do a lot more work on myself before I jumped into a relationship to that depth. And I think he needed to do a lot of work on himself to to really be in it. And frankly, at 22 years old, you're still such a green banana to be getting
Oh,
married in the first place.
sure thing, sure thing. And, you know, there's this sense, I think, when we meet someone at really any age of like, oh, you smell like home, right? But part of
Yes.
that is like, which version of home does that person smell like? Because
Right.
what we're hoping is they're smelling like that, the fantasy that we have of what we hope home will be. And sometimes what that smell is really the home that was so difficult for us, emotionally, metaphorically, from our family of origin story. So there's something that feels reminiscent. And that's why, right? Because in part, it's coming from those unhealed places in us
Yes.
that connect with the unhealed places in that other person. And we go, ah, you are kin. You are there. You are family, right? You are home. And
Right.
then because we know how the story ultimately ends, there's some kind of disillusionment or awakening or awareness that unfolds within the course of that relationship where we start to recognize maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. It was like I all of a sudden woke up one day and I'm looking around and I've got the house, got the kids, got the dog, got the husband. Why am I so empty?
Yeah.
Why is this void just still gaping and nothing is really filling it? And that has everything to do with me not being full and whole and having done the work that I need to, but also in being paired with somebody that wasn't doing the work themselves, that wasn't looking to grow with me as a partner in that way. And and it was just time. It was, we were married for 6 years, and while that is not a long time in the grand scheme of things, it can feel like a very, very long time when you're in a situation that doesn't fit who you are. Um,
And you
and
have
and
all of the adult responsibilities loaded on you,
yes,
right? You've put together a life that from the outside and is what some people would strive for to
and
have.
that's the
Yeah,
challenge
right.
because everyone around you is like, "Oh, your life looks so great." Like
You've made
I'm
it.
never
Yeah.
right. I'm never ever somebody who drags out my dirty laundry in public. I never share marital squabbles with people. I never share, um, I guess, my depths of depression or anxiety or unhappiness with others, or at least I never used to in the past because it felt like I was impeding them with my own feelings. Now, I've done a lot of work around that, and I understand that my feelings are mine and I get to feel them as much as I want to. Um, but at that phase in my life, at that chapter, if you will, I wasn't. I was too busy playing Susie homemaker when people would come over, and the smile and the serving and the just all of the boxes that you're supposed to check as a good wife and mother. And then I'd feel so empty and so drained and just wondering where the rest is. Like, when is the rest of this supposed to load? And will I ever get out of this feeling? And it wasn't really until I started doing some really, really deep work within myself that I realized that I was never going to get what I needed in that space.
When you say doing some really deep work within myself, were you working with a therapist at that time, or was it journaling and reading books? You were working with a
All of the
therapist?
above.
All of the above while you were married still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really looking inward to try to figure out what is this emptiness? What is this void that exists between me? But this chasm I also feel with my partner. What is this? What is this? What is this made of? And I know it's hard to probably comprehensively summarize, but how do you answer that question now? What was that void within you? And then that chasm, of course, between you. But what was that void within you?
A lot of unhealed wounds, a lot of a lot of unhealed um strife with my mother. And then I came to feel as if I was married to a version of my mother at a certain point. And there were an awful lot of characteristics, like you mentioned. It smelled like home, but it didn't smell like the home next to my grandmother where we were getting our makeup done together and spraying perfume. It smelled like the home that I had to hide, that I had to protect myself from. So ultimately now I can look back and say, you were just sitting at the wrong table. You know, you were in a place that wasn't going to serve you, and give yourself the ease and the grace to accept that and say people make mistakes and move on. And
How
that's
did you do it?
the
How did you take that awareness? Because you were still what, in your early 20s, mid 20s. How did you
I was
take that?
27. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you take that awareness and have the courage to leave?
I wouldn't say that I was brave uh by any means. It's I guess that's not fair. I was brave. It was a brave thing to leave, especially when you don't have any support or structure outside of that world. And I didn't have any financial security. I didn't have parents to rely on in that way. I didn't have any fallback plan. Um, but it was just a matter of, I felt like the closest I could feel to, I could die in this scenario. I had already had my kidney removed. I had been perpetually ill and in the hospital like every 2 months. And I'm a huge believer in the mind body connection of, if your mind is a toxic playground, your body's going to start feeling it soon.
You're saying that
And that's just
the stress of your life events were certainly manifest in your health,
yeah,
issues. So when you say I could die in this, meaning like I could just get sicker and sicker, and this could be
correct.
a major contributor factor is staying in this marriage.
Absolutely. And with the idea that these three children of mine are always at the finish line and they are always at the center of my intentional betterment, how am I serving these children by staying in this situation? I'm not. I would hate for any one of my three kids to feel like they're stuck in a situation that they have no way to get out of. And I would have just been setting a further example for that. So I think that was the really big eye opener of, do I want my kids repeating this behavior? If the answer is no, I got to change it, because we are their biggest, like when they're little, we are just their idols, they have no one else to look up to. We teach them how to brush their hair and brush their teeth and wipe their bums. So we're also teaching them bad habits in relationships and how to stay in toxic relationships and how not to honor yourself and your own feelings. And I was doing all of those negative habits that I don't want for them.
This is like such a dilemma for so many people when they find themselves in unhappy and even toxic marriages, but there's children involved. Is the great dilemma around, well, this is the mother or the father of my children or some of my children. Do I err on the side of modeling for them that, families stay together and you can make a marriage work on paper and you can, or what you're talking about, which is kids are like sponges. They pick up our relational patterns. They're smarter than we think they are. They're more astute than we think they are. But again, how many parents come to me and say, I don't want to leave my children with a legacy of divorce. I don't want to break up this family. I feel so guilty to be the catalyst of a divorce or a separation. This is going to ruin the children's lives. The kids have already been through so much. And I mean, that's very real for that person. Those concerns are really real. And then the flip of it is what we're talking about here, which is what are the impressions that the children are taking away in terms of what is possible in a love relationship between two adults. What is what is the melody that they're hearing between two adults? Is it a cacophony? Is it a beautiful harmonious symphony? What's the tenor? What's the vibe? What's the frequency in the home? Do they see physical affection? Do they see, emotional abuse? Do they see contempt? And by the way, there's no simple answers here, right? Everybody is on their own
Oh
journey.
no.
But for sure, you erred on the side of, I feel what's best is for my children to not see any further unfolding of myself and their father in this relationship and the impact on the children of the tension in the home. And so when you left, where did you go? How did you set yourself up with the kids?
Talk about a real flip for these kids. So we went from a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom home with a 2 car garage, um, with a nice yard and space and all of that great stuff. Um, and what I could afford in moving out on my own was a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom apartment with a balcony and no yard and very tiny shared spaces. Um, and it was such a humbling experience to put all 3 kids in one bedroom. um,
Mm,
and the age ranges at the time were 2, 6, and 10.
2, 6, and 10.
So,
Yep. And they had a share.
so you can imagine the tension that happened. But we did it in such a was able to do it in such a way where one kid had the loft bed and then the other kid had an adjacent bed, and then our youngest was tiny enough that was still in their toddler bed. So it was packed to the brim. But the days that we were together and it was just us, and it was eating pasta because it was cheap, and watching a movie that we had watched 1,000 times on a secondhand couch that I got. Those were the memories that started our memories collectively.
Hmm.
That's when the snowball of laughter and positive memories and silly stories and all of that really takes place in the book of my life with these
Oh.
kids. Yeah, it was. So if there's anyone out there who's going through that, I I have friends who are adult children of divorce, and I can honestly tell you that my friends who are adult children of divorce feel like they were lied to their entire childhoods and have to rebuild now as adults around that feeling. So I think we don't give children enough credit. I think children, if we're loving our children unconditionally, most often they're loving us back. So for our children to who love us, to watch us love ourselves is a gift. And we'd be taking that away from them if we don't honor that.
Over It is proudly sponsored by the Couples Center of the Pioneer Valley, offering specialized services to couples and individuals with relationship issues and concerns. Check them out on the web at pioneervalleycouplestherapy.com or call them at 413 570 0067. Well, you raise an important point, I think, which is one that, again, many women struggle with, which is how do I, on some level, prioritize my self-love over what feels like doing what's quote unquote in the best interest of the children. You're saying that the self-love that a woman gives herself is the equivalence of loving the children and doing what's best for the children, which is something I truly believe in, that when mothers really take care of themselves, it really allows them to show up on such a deeper level for the children. And then that's ultimately the big takeaway. But again, a lot of women have the notion in their head that it's selfish to put themselves, quote unquote, first. I mean, when a woman is really making right choice for herself, truly right choice for herself in terms of her physical and emotional well-being, then the children, I think, almost always benefit from that. That doesn't mean there's not like challenges and pain for the children around separation and
Of
divorce,
course.
and that does become part of their story. But I think you're really speaking to the resiliency as well. Um, and so then what happens in this great unfolding?
In the kismet of the universe and the way that things work out, in this time, I ended up reconnecting with my this sounds so silly, I think out loud, just because I'm such a jaded romantic. I rekindled things with my first love. Um, my husband Alex was the first boy I ever had a notebook worthy crush on. And by that I mean he was the name that I doodled in my notebooks on a daily
Yep.
basis. I was busy signing my name Jennifer Kamen long before it officially became that. And his grandmother had passed away the February before, and we just started speaking again as friends. And I think once he saw that the window for dating opportunities became open on my end, he came through the window and then shut it really closed. Like was like, that's it. I'm not playing this game anymore. I did this for years. No more of this. And
Meaning he really profoundly chose you and you chose
yeah,
him.
and I chose him, and I choose him every single day, every hour, every minute, and will happily do so forever and ever. He's um he's my best friend in the entire world. And I know that's a little hokey for some, but in the actuality of what I want in a partner and what I need is exactly what he does for me. He feeds my soul with laughter, and he's constantly the positive voice when I'm feeling negative. And he's come into this world and been the ultimate father figure where, our eldest really had had no structure by way of a father figure. And now this is like they text more often than we do. And I
Hmm.
think that's just so great. Like every time I see our oldest kid's name pop up on their phone and I see them, really quickly go to text back, I'll go days and days without texting, but those two every single day.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And, again, I mean, I think it is something that is really, really true, that if you can do that inner work and you can heal some of those core wounds, the good and bad news about it is it will transform your life. But the hard part is sometimes letting go of what's in your hand, is letting go of what is known. It may not be what's making you happy, and it actually might be making you sick, but it is what is known. And I do think it
Right?
takes a tremendous amount of courage to transform the landscape of your life and to not necessarily know where you're going to land, how you're going to land, what exactly that's going to look like. It takes some belief in self, but really not knowing and having to tolerate the not knowing, but some part of you believing there might be something better for me, or at least there's got to be something that really better matches the frequency than I'm transmitting these days through my healing, through my healed aspects of self. And what I think is just always bears out when I see women on their journeys is if you can do that work and you can wrench yourself like a reluctant uh, pearl out of the oyster and get yourself into a different setting or landscape, that ultimately your ability to self actualize in whatever areas you want to does come to pass. It might take time, but whether that's the unfolding of you in a new career or the exploration of something new to learn or create, or it is actually the ability to attract a love that better matches your healed frequency, it's just a given in life. Like I see it bear out again and again and again. And what happens is ultimately children can thrive. That again
Oh,
doesn't mean they
yeah.
don't have some healing to do, right? It may not be perfect, but the children also have an opportunity to see a mother who's thriving, which I think is a great, great gift to our children.
I couldn't agree more. And I think when you start doing that work, they often say that you lose people through the process of growing yourself. And it is that shed. And that I think the shed is what most people fear because initially you start losing the things that you know. I lost everything from my spouse at the time to I had family members that chose to further align themselves with my ex because I was the one making the mistake. Um, and there was a lot that was quite surprising through that process. However, in hindsight, it was the universe shedding the things that I didn't need and allowing me to move forward. It was the universe opening me up like a beacon to attract some of the friendships that I had maybe kept at an arm's length during my previous marriage and finally embracing them and allowing it closer. I think when you're in a challenging relationship, the concept of love becomes really challenging. And that's the concept of love on all forms. So, be it from my friends, be it from the kids, be it from these family members, it was just so confusing because it's like, I'm supposed to love you and you're supposed to love me in this way. You don't love me in a way that makes me feel loved, but my obligation is to still love you. That's so not true. And the sooner we get to accept that as women, that we are not obligated, that the only person you're obligated to honor and respect is you. And then the next step is if you have children, always honor and respect those children. You're doing right. But when the conversation starts becoming about making everyone else happy, that's when you start losing yourself in the process.
Amen, sister. Amen, sister. I mean, and I wonder too, I mean, there's also as one person is going through a healing journey, there is the opportunity to at least extend an invitation to the partner at that time in some fashion. Will you join me? Will you join me either in couples work? Will you do your own work? Will you meet me on the bridge? And I'm wondering, was there an invitation from you towards partner at any point before leaving, or did you just know there's no possibility of this person doing his own work?
So I want to say that I did extend quite a few times the opportunity of, hey, maybe you can do some of your own work and then we'll meet in the middle. The the feedback that I had been given towards couples therapy was, well, if we're doing couples therapy, then it means that we're already in need of a divorce. So
Mm,
that was shocking to me and made me go, oh, wow, okay, so I won't do couples therapy because that means we're going to get divorced. So I won't do that. Let me just do my own therapy and then I'll be better for you so we can stay married. That
mm,
was absolutely the premise of the way I went into therapy. And then the best thing happened in there, which was at some point, the work that I was doing kicked that wall down and was like, what are you doing, woman? You don't have to make anybody else happy. Start working on yourself. Make yourself happy. Fill some of those Swiss cheese style holes that you got going on there. And the more I started filling those holes with positive thinking and affirmations and the right sort of intentions on what I wanted to see happen in my life, I just I felt such less need to go into couples therapy at that point because I was done. I was ready to continue working on myself to be the best single mom I could be and not think twice about it.
tremendous. I mean, you have, you know, had some continued challenges, way more than your share, around, physical health. And I know just seeing you on the day to day, what that takes out of you, and yet you show up with the fullness of yourself in every sphere of your life. And you're such a bright light. So, but I am wondering about what that experience of, sort of you've had some chronic health issues, even
Yeah.
though you have transformed your life and you have work that sustains you and you have gorgeous children and a wonderful relationship with your husband. What meaning do you make of the suffering you experience around your chronic health issues?
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question, Donna.
You're welcome.
No, it's if anything, it is a constant reminder to be grateful for the life I live, to be grateful for the good days. Um, and again, that can sound like a load of malarkey to some people, but it really, really is the way that I live my life. I look at the days where I'm pain free, where I don't have any issues. And I guess just for viewership and listening, I'm in remission from cervical cancer. I currently have Crohn's disease, and I only have one kidney. So I have run the gamut on situations that have happened to me, and as those who suffer with Crohn's know, it's a daily battle. It's not like a guarantee that you're going to be great for long periods of time. For the most part, you get, a few really great days and then you might get a few really bad ones. Um, but it keeps me humble, it keeps me honest. It has created a really loving relationship with the kids and I, in the sense of if they've extended this muscle of empathy that
Mm,
is far stronger than I've seen in a lot of other people, even adults, where if they see someone else struggling in any way, and that's not just me, if they see someone struggling, if they see someone in need of help, if they see somebody who's thirsty, they're the ones to offer, they're the ones to extend, and the ones to offer care. Um, and and that's been such a great secondary experience that sort of happened to this big negative that goes on when I
Mm.
don't feel well and things like that.
Let
But
me
then I
just,
also
yeah.
have tender moments with like my youngest where she'll crawl into bed when I don't feel well and we'll watch a movie that we've seen 1,000 times and we'll just hold hands.
Mm.
And it's the tenderness in those moments of darkness that keep me going.
I was going to say that that emotional muscle that the children have grown around their capacity to offer compassion is also born out of, I would imagine, a very healthy place in you. Because as a mother, not only have you modeled that kind of compassion for them, I'm sure, but I would imagine there's also an expectation that your children will be compassionate to others, including you. I really want to uphold that because I think a lot of mothers may struggle at times to expect compassion from their children. Now, expecting compassion from your children is different than, expecting your children to caretake for you or take care of your
Right.
emotions but actually feeling like I'm deserving of compassion as a woman, as a mother, and I want my children to know I feel that way about myself is also really strong, healthy modeling
Yeah, and I think not being afraid to say I'm having a bad day.
and being
Today I'm in a
vulnerable.
lot of pain.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
The
right.
vulnerability has to be both ways. Your kids come to you when they fall and scrape their knees. They come to you when they're having a tummy ache. As they get older and they have the capacity to handle more, allow them in, allow them to see the human side of you, because that alone helps them understand the world that they're navigating in. It's, gee, if mom has these issues, you know, like issues with your period. There's nothing wrong with telling your kids when you have cramps or when you're having a heavy day, things like that. That way, my son's going to grow up one day and not be horrified when his wife has this real conversation. And, my daughter will be able to navigate this conversation confidently and not feel shame about her body. All of these
Yeah.
things are incredibly important, and we model that.
Yeah, that ability to say, I'm having a hard day as an adult, to be able to manage your own emotions, right? But still
Yes.
be vulnerable and not pretend that you're fine and everything's fine when it's not, which takes actually a lot of skill and practice, right? I'm going to manage my own reactions, my own emotions. I'm not expecting my children to take care of my emotions, but I also won't hide and pretend that I'm not a human being with needs and feelings and a fluctuation in my experience, right? So there's a realness
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah.
and and teenagers, especially teenagers, I think we look at when they scowl at us or when they roll their eyes or when they do these things, it's easy just to be like, oh, just and be done with it. But the real conversations and the really tough ones happen when you call them back downstairs or you call them back in the room and say, I don't know if you were aware of it, but this is how you reacted to me. And it made me feel hurt, or it made me feel like you just discredited everything I said. I would like it if you think about that the next time this happens. Just that conversation alone stops it from being your snotty kids acting snotty and you just going in the other room and pouring a glass of wine and dealing with it, to actually having that conversation where you two can grow closer together.
Well, right. I mean, in the work that I do in differentiation, there's this idea that we build more emotional muscle by practicing, owning our emotions and then vulnerably revealing them and holding space for the other person to do the same and being able to show each other nurturing concern and curiosity even when we don't agree with each other's perspective. And I always say, adult love relationship is the Olympic training ground for differentiation, but it also absolutely matters in the way that we parent our children. That we don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be like one end of the spectrum are super reactive beasts. And the other end of the spectrum is we're just blank slates who pretend nothing's ever wrong and we just take it and take it and take it. But moving towards that middle ground practice of, okay, take deep breath. I'm going to manage my own emotions, but I'm also going to lean in. And I'm going to lean in and be vulnerable and real about impact, whether that's with our partner or our children. This is the impact that your words are having. Here's what I would prefer. When we're leaning in like that, that's intimacy. That's
Yeah.
trust. It's like a million trust falls, and so the more we can do that with our partner, the more that we can do that with our children, that is such healthy modeling. And honestly, like, again, I mean, you may be a bit younger than some of our listeners, but you bring such profound wisdom to an intentionality towards your parenting. It's really incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. I you can either grow up and be exactly the parent that hurt you or damaged you, or you can actively choose to do it differently. And if there's something that I feel that I'm actively doing is doing it differently. I all I want is to have a happy life and have my kids watch me have a happy life and in turn have a happy life with my kids. And that's it.
Hmm.
It's when the kids ask like, well, like what do you want? Like the truth is all I want is for you to be happy. I want you to not worry so much about what I want and I want you to be happy. And
And
I
I
don't
guess
think
in
enough of
in
us
that,
heard that.
right. And I guess in that, for each of us to be able to define, well, what does that mean to be happy, right? It doesn't necessarily mean we get what we want all the time. Sometimes being happy is the ability to adapt and be content enough, and as we strive for more, right? I mean, there's so many different ways
Right.
to define, I just want you to be happy. You work now at a couple center, and I'm wondering how that has that informed the way that you think about relationships?
Oh my God. What a working at a couple center feels like I am taking on additional therapy, but in a really great way. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like forcibly into therapy in that way, but it's a lot like being surrounded by the most intelligent people on a facet of your life that not enough people taught you about and are constantly building this infrastructure for you to be smarter and wiser and kinder and more thoughtful and more analytical in the way that you approach your own behavior. It's what it's done for me by way of being a more thoughtful partner is worth its weight in gold. I often walk away from the sessions that we'll have with the entire clinicians because we do that you attend. We have those large group sessions with the
Oh, team
clinicians, and
meetings.
it's
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
meetings, yeah. And it's so often that I pick up information and it feels like everyone's speaking to me. Like they understood some sort of scenario that went on in my kitchen the night before
Jen, it's really,
that
we've just been running a very long intervention for you. For no, I was just kidding.
yes, it very well could be because there are times where we'll bring up topics and I'm like, were they in the house last week? Because I swear I went through that just last week.
Hey, listen, there's a
And
universe, of couples out there that have, very resonant, relatable issues, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And the work that is done at the center and the things that are taught on just the betterment of your relationship and your betterment of self have given me so much more confidence in how I'm conducting myself in my relationship. I'm not saying I'm sorry all the time just to say I'm sorry.
Interesting.
There's purpose behind it. Where as a child I was made to feel like a nuisance or a burden, and I felt that I constantly had to apologize. I carried that into my adulthood, into my younger adult years.
Wow.
And if I can be truthful, it's really only in the past year or so that I've really like pumped the brakes on that. And I'm like, why am I sorry? Am I sorry? No, I'm not sorry. I'm just being me right
Are
now. What
you
am I
over
sorry
it?
for?
Are you over it,
I'm
Jen? Are you
over
over
it.
saying sorry all the time and not knowing why? Or maybe not
Put on
really
the
being
stamp.
sorry. Yeah. And
Yeah.
over being sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm over being sorry. I'm over being sorry for nothing. I'm over being sorry for being me. I'm over being the girl with the glasses and the curly hair who's too loud in the room. That's me. You don't like it? Walk away.
I like everything about you.
Thanks, Summer.
Yeah.
I like everything about you.
Oh, I just really am grateful for everything you shared so vulnerably today. And anybody that gets to spend time with you, Jen, is really lucky. I mean, I tell you every day how much I adore you and how grateful I am. You are an amazing, if I mean, to Alex and I have something in common in that we go through life with you. You're virtually by my side. You're physically by his. But, just I'm so grateful you came on over it. And I think for all of our listeners who are also celebrating this month and what it symbolizes, I'm just so grateful that you came on over it and shared your story with all of us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute honor, and getting to learn from you is an equal honor. So thanks for keeping me rightfully employed.
My pleasure. If our listeners are enjoying the podcast and you want to hear more, make sure you like, follow, and share. And we'll see you next time on Over It. Bye, Jen.
Bye.
Control yourself. Don't drink too much. Don't talk too much. Don't look that way. Don't stare at that boy. Don't giggle. Don't wiggle. That's too short. No one can shackle me. No, no, no. Wait, there's orders. No, no, no. No, I won't give up. No, no, no. No, we won't give up. No, no, no. I don't want to hear these words. How can a man speak this way? How can a girl always seem who hold up this rule? No, no, no. He kissed the dust. He's unless can't understand. He won't give up. He looked that way. He stared at me. Don't giggle. Don't wiggle.